Disney's at it again. The mouse-eared Dream Factory has once again given the world a new, ambitious animated feature film to enjoy in Raya and the Last Dragon, which recently released on both Disney Plus and whatever open theaters it could manage to scrounge up. Being conceived not just as a Disney action fantasy epic, but also as a tribute to South Asian cultures, the film is, as is typical for Disney, packed with detail. And we're gonna go through some that you just might have missed on that first viewing. Okay, so maybe this is a bit too obvious of a comparison, but what with Raya being a fantasy story set in a world largely inspired by Asian culture, and being absolutely brimming with magic abilities, weird creatures, and crazy martial arts, it's not hard to draw parallels between this movie and the successful Nickelodeon franchise Avatar, with which it shares many themes. And apparently, someone in the character design branch thought so too. At least that seems to be the best explanation for why young Raya is dressed almost exactly like Korra in the beginning of the movie, down to sharing the hairstyle. We also first see her fighting in a water temple, and she befriends a water dragon. Now, which type of bender was Korra again? It's a small world after all, and sometimes whole groups of folks end up working together again on a completely different project a little further down the line. This is no different for Raya, which is practically a reunion of several of the powers behind the romantic comedy film Crazy Rich Asians, released in 2018. Not only was it the first screenwriting credit for Adele Lim, who wrote the screenplay for Raya, it also features both Sisu's voice actor Awkwafina and Gemma Chan, who voices the fierce Namari. Now, you can't say Asian Disney princess without mentioning the highly beloved Mulan. But that's not their only connection, as their respective voice actors have sort of switched places in terms of franchises. Kelly Marie Tran, who voices Raya and is best known for playing Rose in the new Star Wars trilogy, idolized Ming-Na Wen, who voices Mulan, and the two actually met at the Rise of Skywalker premiere, much to her delight. And now, in true Prince and Pauper style, Kelly has now taken Wen's place as a Disney princess, while Wen is part of the Star Wars universe in her role as Fennec Shand. Which means they're still both under the watchful eye of the all-powerful mouse, of course. The COVID-19 pandemic made production of a lot of projects suddenly turn very awkward and unusual, and Raya was no exception. Almost all of the film's dialogue had to be recorded remotely from the actors' homes, resulting in them having to set up makeshift recording booths at home and having to use tricks such as recording in the closet to get the best possible sound quality. And that sounds like my early days here. The film's producer, Osnat Shurer, has been quoted saying that she believes Raya may be the largest-scale film recorded remotely to date. Awkwafina is fast making a name for herself as a voice actress. So far, she's voiced characters in Storks, Angry Birds Movie 2, Sponge on the Run, and now Raya, where she plays a water dragon. And, funnily enough, she's already attached to another aquatically themed Disney property, as she is set to lend her voice to the upcoming live-action Little Mermaid remake. While she won't be playing Ariel, she will be voicing a presumably female version of Ariel's seagull friend Scuttle, which means she's gone right back to playing a bird. Hey, every actor needs a niche, okay? There's a whole lot of fancy punching, kicking, and weapon swinging going on in Raya and the Last Dragon, but this isn't just some random flailing meant to look cool and flashy. It's all based on actual South Asian martial arts. At the beginning of the film, as Raya is training with her dad, we see her use a stick fighting style similar to the Filipino art of Kali, also known as Arnis or Eskrima. Other fighting styles seen in the film also draw inspiration from the Indonesian pencaksilat style as well as Muay Thai boxing. You can't just have a modern-era Disney film without Alan Tudyk somewhere in it. After playing King Candy back in Wreck-It Ralph, the actor has become a mainstay as various side characters or animal companions, playing anything from a chicken to a pompous count to a shifty pirated movie dealer. This time, however, he gets to stick around for the entirety of the adventure, as he is the one giving his voice to Raya's trusty pet and steed, the armadillo pillbug-esque Tuk Tuk. Yet another reason to find the big goofy bug so darn lovable. Well, since we're discussing Tuk Tuk anyway, there's actually a fun detail to be found right there in his name. It isn't just some random cutesy name the film came up with. The big roly-poly bug actually shares his name with a particular kind of motorized rickshaw common to many Asian countries. They're especially well-known and widely used in Bangkok, where they serve all sorts of purposes, from taxis to transportation of goods and wares, and even as police vehicles. And now, I can't help but imagine all of history's greatest police car chase scenes, but with all the cars replaced by giant pill bugs. Now there's a movie I'd want to see. While a lot of people tend to think of only a few countries when thinking of Asia, Raya and the Last Dragon is specifically meant to evoke a more specific region, namely that of South Asia and the many countries therein, which tend to go underrepresented in Hollywood films. More specifically, the film's South Asian melting pot setting of Kumandra has been stated to have drawn inspiration from places like the Philippines, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, Malaysia, and Indonesia in terms of culture, attire, food, fighting styles, etc. Much like the fighting styles seen in the film, the various weapons are also based in reality, including Raya's sword. Well, partly at least. Raya's sword may have a very fantastic whip function that you'd be hard-pressed to find in real life, but that doesn't change that its curved blade is reminiscent of some real swords, more specifically the Indonesian dagger known as a kris, which is often used in the aforementioned pencak silat style of martial arts. Being carved with intricate designs, these blades are seen as an essential part of Indonesian culture, are used as both weapons and as spiritual objects, and are even sometimes considered magical to boot. No word on that whip function though. Maybe someday. While it's not as much of an unbroken rule now as it once was, there was a time where you couldn't say Disney movie without also saying musical, especially if the film delved into fantasy at all, rather than being a smaller-scale slice-of-life style story. Raya shares its distinction of being not just a fully-fledged Disney fantasy film, but also featuring absolutely no musical numbers with only one other Disney feature, the oft-forgotten and rather dark fantasy film The Black Cauldron from 1985, based on the Chronicles of Prydain series of novels by Lloyd Alexander. Both also got a little bit darker than usual for Disney adventures, and wait a minute, did the Horned King summon the Droon? Did I just uncover the most bizarre Disney crossover ever? Are people gonna have to start acknowledging that Black Cauldron exists? You don't have to look particularly far into Raya and the Last Dragon in order to find some easily missable details. If you speak Malay at least. Because there's one right there on the protagonist's name, and thus by extension the very title itself. Since the movie is intended to be a piece that celebrates diversity and the unity of the many South Asian cultures of the world and promotes the ideals of all nations coming together under an umbrella of trust and acceptance, it's only fitting for the film's protagonist to be named Raya, as Raya is a Malay word meaning celebration. True to many cultures, not just South Asian ones, Raya comes prepared with a food offering when she first goes to find Sisu, since she at this point believes the titular dragon is akin to some kind of god. It would have been easy to make her offering any old food she could manage to scrounge up, or even that dried jackfruit jerky she keeps munching on for the whole film, but closer inspection shows that she is offering Sisu a bantet, that is to say, a Vietnamese type of rice cake. Hey Sisu, if you're not gonna eat it, can I have it? It's not Disney without at least some cameos from other films. And while Raya tries rather hard to be a somewhat serious, action-focused adventure that doesn't have time for most of the fun little Disney details we normally see, it's not completely void of surprise appearances. Take a look at this city shot and tell me if this floppy-eared dog looks kind of familiar. I don't know about you guys, but to me that sure looks like Miguel's dog Dante from the much-beloved Pixar film Coco. Somehow, he jumped from South America to South Asia just to be an extra good boy. Aww. After having searched all over Kumandra in order to find the Last Dragon, Raya's last stop on her journey takes her to the wreckage of an old ship. Now this isn't the first time a Disney princess has had to go into a shipwreck in order to complete her quest though. It happened not very long ago in Frozen 2 when Elsa and Anna find the red ship. While on closer inspection you can tell that it's not the same ship, even though that would have been a really cool Easter egg. Both scenes do feature the protagonist making a major breakthrough in their journey thanks to a little bit of magical levitating water. A deliberate shout out between projects or pure coincidence? You be the judge. While fans were generally delighted to hear that the role of Raya went to Kelly Marie Tran, the Star Wars actress was not the first choice to play Raya. She was originally going to be played by Cassie Steele of Degrassi fame. Thankfully, the replacement wasn't due to some major disagreement or controversy though. As the script for the film evolved, the team simply felt that another actress would be more suited for the character Raya had become. While dragons are hugely important to many Asian cultures and the film is named after them, Sisu and her siblings actually deviate a fair bit from traditional Asian dragons. And I don't just mean from the lack of whiskers. In fact, Sisu in particular has more in common with the Naga. That is, more specifically, the Fire Naga, a type of spirit known in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism as semi-divine water spirits that took residence in rivers and were capable of switching between human and serpent forms. Much like Sisu, who is explicitly a water dragon, quickly learns to do in the film. There's just too many similarities to ignore. At various points in the movie, we see several characters greet each other with some manner of sun salute by joining their hands in a circle shape. While this greeting in and of itself is admittedly fictional, it is reminiscent of and based on many traditional greetings in South Asian cultures, where joining of hands is paired with a bow to show respect for whatever you're addressing, according to anthropologist Steve Aroundsack, who worked as a consultant on the film. Real-life examples include, among others, the Wei in Thailand and the Nop in Laos. Raya and the Last Dragon was not the original title for the film. As it happens with most movies, it went through a lot of changes from its initial pitch. And when it was first revealed to the public in 2019, it was known under the title Dragon Empire and would seemingly have involved a protagonist named Jan Nin who would be joined by her mentor Bolin and a dragon named Katsu. Something tells me they weren't referring to this Bolin, but with all the other similarities this movie has to Avatar, that would actually have been kind of awesome. With their overly familiar dialogue and general chemistry, fans were quick to embrace the tension between Raya and the film's primary antagonist, Namaari, seeing potential for romance. And they aren't alone. Kelly Marie Tran, who voices Raya, has been reported saying that she believes the character is LGBT and that there is definitely something going on between the two, though Disney predictably have made no official statements on this. But it is somewhat supported by neither character having a canon love interest and the two sometimes referring to each other as Dip La, a Vietnamese term meaning beautiful. So Disney went and made a movie meant to celebrate the beautiful and varied cultures all across Southeast Asia. That's great! Too bad the people in those countries can't actually watch it yet. In a mix of a minor blunder and pure awful timing, the release of Raya and the Last Dragon as a Disney Plus Premium Access title meant that most countries in South Asia couldn't actually watch the film made for them, as with the exception of Singapore and Indonesia, none of these places actually have Disney Plus available yet. In an extra big fumble, the movie doesn't even have any Asian dubs on the American Disney Plus service either yet. Whoops! And as far as theatrical releases, well, have you been following the news for the last year or so? For as much work as Raya has put into being a celebration of South Asian culture and making sure that this story of a female warrior was helmed largely by women and with a cast comprising almost entirely of Asian American actors, it hasn't been entirely free of some light controversy, owing to the fact that while most of the film's voice actors are indeed of Asian descent, the majority of them aren't South Asian, they're East Asian. It's not uncommon for an animated film to base its character's appearance on the actor playing the part. I mean, seriously, just take an extra gander at this dude from Home on the Range and tell me you see anyone other than Steve Buscemi. And while most of Raya's cast avoids this, there is one person who bears a particular resemblance to the person voicing them. That being Raya's father Benja, who is modeled after his voice actor Daniel Dae Kim, who among other things is known for his role as Jin-Soo Kwon on Lost. It's not his first time voicing the father of a warrior princess either, as he also plays King Micah in the DreamWorks-produced animated series She-Ra and the Princess of Power, who was also MIA for years thanks to magic stuff. Huh. Disney, being the huge company they are, actually plan their various projects and film releases many years in advance, even from the moment that they're little more than pitches, with release dates constantly being moved and swapped practically on the fly as production moves ahead. This means that a while back, they were planning on releasing a completely different movie on March 5th altogether. That being Gigantic, an adaptation of the classic tale of Jack and the Beanstalk, though the film was sadly officially cancelled in 2019 after a particularly troubled production. All we have left of it now is a brief gag in Zootopia. Oh well, I guess I'll just keep rewatching the Mickey Mouse version from 1947's Fun and Fancy Free. You may remember that back when Soul came out around Christmas, it featured a special message in the credits acknowledging how the COVID-19 pandemic had made it necessary for many of its animators and voice actors to work from home. Well, given that even more of Raya's production had to be done remotely, it too features such a message near the end of its credits, calling the production unprecedented and entirely reliant on the talent, ingenuity, and dedication of everyone at Walt Disney Animation Studios, thanking everyone involved for their hard work, and adding a little jape at their own troubles taking the work online. It's good to see the pandemic didn't crush their sense of humor. There are no doubt plenty more intricacies hidden away in the sprawling world of Kumandra that we haven't even been able to spot in this video, but we did our best to cover as much as possible. And hey, we trust you guys to know and spot plenty of other cool details in this high-flying martial arts dragon adventure yourselves.